Looney's very relaxed. He's helping me out. He's been working with me on the topic. It's a challenging topic this week of its because of its size, the volume of this topic, and I sort of alluded to it a little bit at the start. But the question was, are you at this very moment experiencing the fullness and the totality of who you are in reality? And if I were to ask myself that question, I would start off with a good hearty laugh. Um, I, while I'm grateful for the experience of whatever my experience is right now, if I were to ask myself, am I experiencing the totality, the fullness of my entire spiritual being in this moment? It's the answer is no. I'm experiencing a small little slice of it. I'm going to refer to a couple of spiritual masters, and the first one who said, this is one of the most mysterious of all lines in scriptures in my humble estimation, but when Jesus said, you cannot by taking thought add 1 cubit to your measure, it's really such a, well, only a mystic could say that because it's so mind-blowing. And I know in my own experience that if whoever I think that I am is generally not close to who I am. And so, over the weekend, it was a rich, full weekend, and something happened, and it sort of triggered I guess I would call it a spasm of self. You know that great prayer that says, relieve me of the bondage of self? Well, something happened. It's not really important what happened, but it created a reaction within me where I was very much in a smaller sense of self, and smaller thinking, and smaller reaction, and smaller emotion. And for me, that's painful. That's suffering when I spasm into my smaller sense of self, and I am far, far, far from being immune from that. But be that as it may, when I woke up on Sunday, it was sort of a hangover of self, if you will. One of the thoughts that came to me, because I did pray that wisdom and insight comes from my suffering. I certainly would hope so. But one of the insights was the me that I was so disgusted with, for lack of a better phrase, the me that I was not happy with isn't me. It's just, that's not me. And then it occurred to me that the me who's not happy with a sense of me is not me either. In other words, there's just a very small sense of myself that I can fall into. Now, speaking of this other mystic, we're going straight to Ramana Maharshi, 1879 to 1950, one of the most influential, amazing, powerful yoga mystics and sages of the East, of the modern era. And when he was a young teenager, he had a terrifying experience of fear and panic and fear of death. And so one day he just realized that he would go into it, and he had this enlightenment experience where he realized that his fear of death was caused by a small sense of self. Be that as it may, whatever happened, he broke and transcended the limits of who he thought he was, and he went on to influence millions and millions and millions and millions of followers without preaching, without proselytizing. People would travel all over the world, including many well-known Westerners, just to be in his presence. And his entire spiritual teaching was boiled down to the question, who am I? People would come to see him, and they would be enthralled by his peaceful presence, and he would sit in peace and quiet. And if asked a question, he would inquire of the person asking to simply ask who they are. So today and this week, we have the opportunity and the suggestion at any given moment, especially if the bondage of self strikes us, to simply ask who I am, who am I? because that inquiry continuously pierces this bondage of self. Now, the vision I got in my meditation with Looney is that if you were to cover up the entire sun with a thick, gooey, dark substance and then put one little pinprick in it, it's amazing how much light would come out of that pinprick. That's who we are. That's who Brian and Carolyn and Dave and Bea and Karen and Marcy and Marcia and Greg and Looney are. We're all little pinpricks of the infinite. And as profound, as astonishing as it is of this small little bit of ourselves that's here, it's a very, 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 very small part of who we are. And we're all just waking up to this larger sense of self. And so is the world. And living in this small sense of self, it's very chaotic. It's very disruptive. Can seem very scary and frightening what's going on here and what we're doing. We're like little kids with such a small sense of self fighting. As a parent, if you had multiple kids, did you ever have all your kids fighting at the same time and you had to kind of come in and sort things out? Well, ask yourself, who am I this week? Or as my Indian meditation teacher, she had a nice way of saying it, who I am. And ask yourself continuously, like Ramana, who am I? And let's expand into this larger sense of self, because that's where the answers are, that's where the peace is, and that's where Looney is. Anyway, we'll continue during the week. If it seems confusing so far, good, because illumination and enlightenment is always preceded by confusion. See you.